Welcome to a world where the familiar turns sinister. Tonight, we uncover 6 bone-chilling tales of horror that all share one haunting location, a seemingly ordinary farm. Grab your courage and stay close, because what you're about to hear will leave you questioning every rustling leaf and every shadow in the dark. The Well of Whispers. The farm had an old well, covered and unused for decades. The farmer warned me never to go near it, but one evening, as I was mending fences, I heard faint crying coming from the well. I ignored it at first, thinking it was the wind, but as the sun set, the crying grew louder and more desperate. I decided to investigate, removing the heavy cover from the well. As I peered inside, the crying stopped. Then a pale hand shot up, grabbing my wrist with a grip colder than ice. A voice hissed, "Help me," before yanking me forward. I stumbled back, the hand releasing me. But when I looked down, I saw claw marks scorched into my skin. The farmer later explained that the well was cursed. Decades ago, a worker fell in and drowned. Every now and then, he still calls for help, but those who answer never leave the farm. The barn's red light. The old barn at the edge of the property was unused for years, its wooden beams warped and decayed. One night, as I was locking up, I noticed a faint red light flickering from the barn's upper window. Thinking it was a prank or a malfunctioning light, I grabbed a flashlight and headed over. The door creaked open with a sound that made my skin crawl. The barn was dark and damp, filled with cobwebs and the scent of rot. I climbed the ladder to the loft where the light was coming from. At the top, I found an old lantern glowing red, not with fire, but with an otherworldly crimson hue. Before I could touch it, I felt a hand on my shoulder. Whipping around, I saw no one, but I heard heavy breathing in the shadows. The lantern's glow grew brighter, revealing skeletal figures hanging from the rafters, moving, twitching as if trying to free themselves. I bolted out of the barn, but the red light followed me, shining through the cracks in the wood. The next day, the farmer warned me not to go back, claiming the barn was cursed by the spirits of workers who had died there in a fire decades ago. The Silent Harvest. The farm was known for its lush wheat fields, but there was one patch no one dared to harvest, a perfectly square area in the middle of the largest field. When I asked the farmer why, he gave me a vague warning. That's the land of the silent. Curiosity got the better of me. Late one evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I decided to drive the combine harvester into that forbidden patch. The air grew unnaturally still. No wind, no birds, just an oppressive silence. As I began harvesting, the wheat seemed wrong. The stalks bled a thick, dark sap that reeked of decay. Then the harvester's engine sputtered and died. In the silence, I heard whispers, not from the radio, but from the wheat itself. I stepped out of the cab and found myself surrounded by figures, shadowy silhouettes rising from the ground, their eyes glowing faintly. They moved closer, whispering in a language I couldn't understand. Panicking, I ran, but the whispers grew louder, deafening. The next morning, the harvester was found abandoned in the field, its cab empty. The farmer never mentioned the incident, but I noticed him marking the forbidden patch with new stakes, as if to keep whatever was inside from escaping. The Night of the Black Cows. The herd of black cows on the farm was always odd. They kept to themselves, never mingling with the other cattle, and their eyes seemed too intelligent. One night, the farmer asked me to check on them, as they hadn't returned to the barn for the evening feed. I grabbed a flashlight and headed into the field. The cows stood motionless in a tight circle, their heads bowed toward the ground. As I approached, they all turned to face me in unison, their eyes reflecting an unnatural red glow in the dark. The flashlight flickered, and the air filled with a low, guttural hum, as if the earth itself was vibrating. The cows began to move, but not like animals. They walked upright on their hind legs, their massive frames looming over me. I stumbled back, dropping the flashlight. When I picked it up, the cows were gone, but the ground where they had stood was scorched, the grass blackened in a perfect circle. The farmer refused to talk about it, only saying, "The black herd isn't ours. It never was." The phantom barn door. While working on a remote dairy farm, I was assigned night duty to ensure the livestock were safe. The barn was old, creaking with every gust of wind. One night, as I checked the stalls, I heard a loud slam from the barn doors. I rushed over, expecting to see an intruder, but the doors were shut tight. As I turned to leave, I heard faint footsteps in the hayloft above me. Grabbing a pitchfork, I climbed the ladder to check. The loft was empty, but something caught my eye. A single child's shoe buried in the hay. As I reached down to grab it, I heard a whisper, "Leave, or she'll take you too." The barn doors slammed again, and the temperature plummeted. I fled, and the next day the farmer revealed the story of his daughter, who had gone missing years ago. Her last known location, the barn. The Scarecrow's shadow. In the heart of a desolate countryside, I worked on a farm known for its endless cornfields. One morning, as I prepared to harvest a section of the field, I noticed something unusual. The Scarecrow, which usually stood at the edge of the field, was now in the center. I asked the farmer about it, but he shrugged it off, saying he hadn't moved it. By nightfall, curiosity got the best of me, so I went out to the field with a flashlight. As I approached the Scarecrow, I noticed its head tilt slightly toward me. The air turned cold, and the flashlight flickered. Suddenly, the Scarecrow's shadow began moving, detaching itself from the figure and sprinting across the field. It circled me, whispering my name in a raspy, guttural voice. Panicking, I bolted back to the farmhouse. The next morning, the Scarecrow was back in its original place, but its burlap sack face now had stitched lips forming a sinister smile. I quit the farm the same day. If these farm horror stories sent chills down your spine, don't keep the terror to yourself. Share your thoughts in the comments. Which story scared you the most? Or do you have your own spooky tale to tell? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell for more terrifying stories like these. Until next time, stay curious and stay safe.